pjnet.tv. It's Tuesday night, 9 p.m. on the East Coast. Go watch our Buffalo run. It gets better, though. We've got Ben Cooper standing by in the green room. We are streaming and recording. Our chat room is waiting. So, what we'll do is count it down to Studio 21, starting now. Okay, welcome. This is pjnet.tv. I'm your host, Coach Prasick, and it is, I guess, the first Tuesday of the month. And if you haven't got your calendar, you can always go to pjnet.tv, and there's a schedule button there, and you can find out that Ben Cooper owns the 9 o'clock time, and for the next 20 minutes, we'll get to enjoy Ben. But Ben, since the last time we got together, you have visited many places, including the hospital.
Yeah, I thought I was going in for a 4-day, 3-night spa. That was not the case. That was definitely not the case. Not a very good experience. It seems the very nasty stomach and intestinal flu bug hit our church on Easter Sunday, and about half of our church got sick from it. And I kind of got the worst of all of it, and my intestines just shut down, completely shut down, and said, we're not going to work anymore. No blockage, just shut down. And that was, nobody could figure out why. Very painful, but I do appreciate the prayers. I know that my PJNet family was praying, and what I'm going to share tonight is a funny little incident that was, as Jay would call it, one of those God things that happened in the. This place is not the hospital. It's not the ER room. It's called observation. And so I don't know if the hospitals down there have an observation wing, but it was filled with some people, and they just watch you. That means if you need something, they're not there. But if you don't need them and you want to sleep, they're there to poke and prod you and do all things. It has a little very narrow window outside with Venetian blinds on it. And every once in a while, the Venetian blinds would go up and they would observe me. And then they would close. I would wave at them, and that was it. But it was not a fun experience. It was brutal at times. But by the time I left, I had a doctor and a nurse or two that started hanging out in my room, and they felt comfortable, and I'll share a little bit more about that later.
I was going to say, how was the caregivers and staff?
For the most part, good. It was good. In fact, I had the opportunity to share with several of them, and actually shared some books with them. But we'll get that. But I'm glad to be here. I'm glad to be on the mend. I'm eating some more solid food now, so that helps.
I was concerned that maybe you had diverticulitis. What did they ever diagnose you with?
It's just my small intestines refuse to work.
They deserve the break.
So I had the NG tube, had to have my stomach pumped for 12 hours. And it was brutal for that thing going down. Yeah. So not a fun experience, but took advantage, and when I had opportunity, and hopefully in one case might have even pointed somebody to Christ. So that's part of what I want to share tonight.
Okay. Well, a lot of times, folks, Ben, you're kind of filling the pulpit on Wednesday evening, so a lot of times we get to be your kind of warm-up focus group, to find out how the sermons go.
Yeah, well, my online, I got out of the hospital on Sunday late afternoon, I actually walked out to my bee yard and it was 85 degrees that day. Just remember that just shortly 6 days before that, we had 7 inches of snow and it was about 28 degrees. So uh, that's where we are. But my bees were being clogged and I needed to reduce some entrances, open them up, not reduce them. They were already reduced and give them more freedom to fly. And so I come home, I did that and managed to go to church. I don't remember. Maybe I didn't. But Monday I had a bee class to do. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday I had guest blogs to do that I was on, and then Wednesday night, my regular Wednesday night filling in for our church on Wednesday night online Bible study. And so, you know what? Growing up on a farm, the animals still need fed. The cows still need milk, whether somebody was sick or not. And you had to do it. So just basically tough it out. But what I wanted to share, even though the 9-hour lovely stay in the ER where nobody hardly comes around, and then at 1 o'clock in the morning, I was moved to what they call the observation ward, and that's what they don't want to send you home. They don't want to admit you, and I think that translates that I pay more out of pocket cost in observation and so it helps the hospital numbers say we have less people admitted, but they're in this stasis room, and you're free to check yourself out, but there wasn't much reason for me to go home until I felt that I could go home, and the pain and the problems were much reduced. I'll jokingly say that one of the physician assistants declared me to be 33 weeks pregnant because my stomach was actually distended that much and it was painful. She reduced it down to 28 months or 28 weeks, before I left. But, I find humor in getting healthy and getting through some sickness sometimes. And so I welcome that. I'm okay with that. But despite all that, the story I wanted to share was that as nurses would work 12-hour shifts, one nurse would then tell the incoming nurse and go room to room and this is what the status is of this patient, of this patient, of this patient. And as they did that, one nurse came in really late at, it was probably 7:30, 8 o'clock at night, came in, and she was pretty helpful to me. The next morning, she came in, and I was staring out the window. And I'm up walking around. I sat in every one of the chairs to get moving. They wanted you to not get blood clots and laying, so I'd walk around the hall with an IV pole. But I was staring out the window, and on the edge of the parking lot was an area of woods. The sun's coming up, and there's these shadows behind these tall trees. And so I'm looking, and there's a dark spot. And Coach, I could swear it was moving. Now, this young nurse had better, younger eyes than me, and I just motioned her to come to the window, and I said, Keisha, do you see that dark spot over there in the woods? And she said, yeah. And she said, where? And I pointed out. She said, yeah, I see it. I said, is that moving or is it not? And she said, I think it's moving. Whatever it is, it's moving. And it was too dark to be a deer. It was bigger than a deer. What I thought, to me and to her, we deduced that it was a bear laying down and just moving a little bit and just laying down into the woods. But granted, there's bright spots of sunlight and then dark shadows behind the trees and some bigger trees. So just wasn't sure. Well, the next thing I see that Nurse Keisha goes out of my room, and she had a very distinctive pair of blaze orange Crocs. You know, those shoes with holes in them, those Crocs. And I see somebody walking with blaze orange shoes in the parking lot and walked all the way to the edge of the parking lot. right where that spot was. She stood there for a minute, looked, turned, and walked back. And so she walked out of the hospital, went out there, curiosity, just over, she said she had to go check it out. Now, Keisha is somebody that likes hunting and fishing, and she probably has blaze orange Crocs for that reason. But she came in and she said, "Are you ready to find out what that is?" And I didn't see her take a camera out and take a picture, so I didn't think it was anything superb. And she said, "It's a stump." All it was, and we both swore that it moved. Well, if you watch this, there was movement, and we both saw the movement. But, Coach, it was the sunlight moving across that stump, and it hit some highlights of way that stump had eroded and rotted away, that it did look like it was the moving part was the sunlight and the shadows. And I said, I'm probably going to be able to write a devotion on this. And actually last week I did. But isn't it amazing how we can fool ourselves with looking at something in the shadows without the brilliance and the bright light of the sun? And what we see in daylight, broad daylight, is totally different than what we see in the shadows. Shadows are, where things lurk there. Our imagination starts to race from us, and we start to maybe panic if it's in a bad situation. I remember one of my surgeries. I left the downtown Baltimore, the city of Baltimore, which isn't a great place, but we left at 10 o'clock at night. And there's a whole different atmosphere at 10 o'clock at night in Baltimore than there is at 3 or in the afternoon in daylight. And so I started writing, and I quickly went to Ephesians chapter 5, verse 8, where it tells us, walk as children in the light. We're to walk. Our command is to walk in the light, because the shadows will distract us and discourage us and can actually even defeat us when we let our imaginations take over. And so a lot of people, you took some sociology classes. I'm sure they probably even knew back then that the longer period of lack of sunlight will cause people to have more anxiety and even suicidal thoughts and tendencies. And the longer that happens, we're meant, engaged, and created and geared to be creatures of light, but we have this propensity for darkness, and it lures us, it scares us, and it sometimes debilitates us. Your thoughts, comments on that?
Oh, I could do a lot on light. I'll take a detour, but I concur and emphasize in the Bible, God is always, truth and good are always associated with light, and evil and bad and Satan and all that is always associated with darkness. So there's just this innate, it's kind of in our DNA. Also, we are born with 3 instinctive fears: fear of falling, fear of a sudden loud noise, and fear of the dark. So darkness is always something to be approached with that in mind. Now we've covered darkness. Let's cover light. When you go outside, or when we go outside and we look at the trees, and if I were to ask you what color is the trees or the grass, people would say green, wouldn't they? Because it is.
Yeah.
But scientifically, that's not true. In fact, color is the only science whereby truth is arrived at by consensus. Now, Ben, you know that the light that we see, when we see the grass as green, what that means is it only reflects a frequency of light that we, by consensus, call green. So the truth of the matter is, I don't know what color that grass is. What I do know is it reflects a frequency of light that we by consensus call green. Now, how many shades of green are there? There's
Well, to the
millions.
colorblind person, yeah, but to the colorblind person, it's all gray. To them, it might be gray.
Yeah.
And you know what we see, because our eye is different. A lot of times when I teach my beekeeping class, I will show the flowers that we see, and then I have some others that show what it looks like from a bee's complexed eye, and it's totally different. There's almost like it's like signs pointing towards where the nectar and the pollen source is, because God designed that compound eye for the bee to be able to pick up and see, so the scouts can find nectar and pollen so much easier. And it's just amazing what looks maybe a beautiful flower to us is totally different because of the spectrum that the bees can see, and it's a total different picture.
Well, there's another fascinating fact. The eyes are a combination of rods and cones. One is better at detecting light, the other is better at detecting color. And I forget which one is which. But I do know this. Humans have the highest proportion of whichever it was, rods or cones, to perceive color. No other animal perceives color the way we do. And that tells me that God is cool. We see the world vividly, where lower animals see it more in grayscale. Now, the downside of that is we don't see as well in the dark.
Right.
Other animals have much better night vision than we do. And I think that our design reflects the majesty of our Creator, because He made us special. And we are to, since we can't see well in the dark, we need to seek the light, don't we?
Right, because the scripture tells us, thy word is a lamp unto my feet. And it's not a floodlight that goes like one of these military lights that you can see 3/4 of a mile away and pick out objects. We just need to see for the next few steps, because in that darkness, the world around us, we just need to stay on course and be guided. One of the things that I really find fascinating, and I look at creation, I know, Coach, you and I both have talked before about the evidence of God creating, but God the Father is the created act. Jesus the Son spoke everything into creation, and the Holy Spirit adds that flair and vitality and all the color that we see in that creative week that God created everything. It just all came together, and all three parts of the Trinity were there, evident and involved. And God created such a beautiful world, and unfortunately we are slowly making use of it at our own whim, so to speak. So can't wait for that reconstructed new world that He has, that will be spectacular.
Well, we're almost out of time, but I was thinking about you earlier today, Ben. I was watering the roses and observing the brilliant rose petals, and it's really dry down here, very dry. And there was this bee that kept getting in the way, and I didn't want to run the bee off, because I remember that you have almost dedicated your life to these precious insect. Is it an insect?
Yep.
Is a bee an insect? Okay. I've heard it said that we would not be alive if it weren't for bees. Is that true?
Well, we would probably lose about 1/3 of the food that we have, and 1/3 of the plants on the planet would be gone. So you take away 1/3 of everything that, if you eat meat, the animals that eat grass and flowers and things are gone. So, it's amazing. I have a poster, a big poster that I created for one of the things that I display at, that it shows a breakfast with pollinators and a breakfast without it, and it's a pretty bland world without it. So
Well, yeah. So, Ben, we're almost out of time, but you've written. I think you were blogging. You've got Vine words. You've got quite a bit of words going out of that word factory down there, up there.
yeah, and I'm just about ready to sign another contract with 2024 All God's Critters with Guidepost, and so that came through. So I've got more work to do with Guidepost, and so Diane is already looking at scheduling Vine Words authors for 2023. Guidepost, I have two different imprints from Guidepost that will be coming out later this year, and so, yep, between the bees and the word, bees and books, it keeps me busy.
Well, Ben, you're an interesting guy, and we're glad you made it through. And I see we're at the 20-minute mark. I'm going to check on something because here lately we've been having some issues on it. It looks like everything's still good. But Ben, we appreciate you being on the PJNet team and sharing with us and making yourself available. And the stories you tell and the words you write. And we'll probably see you in the chat room in a few minutes. We got to make some room for Dell here in a second.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to hearing him and his exciting life. But I want to again thank everybody that was praying for me last week and the week before in the hospital. It's a slow recovery, but I appreciate all the prayers in my PJNet family. Thanks, Coach.
All right, thank you, Ben Cooper. Here on PJNet. Oh, so many things going on. We are experimenting with some new stuff, and we're going to get it right. That's a brand new camera that just came in today. It's actually like the GoPro, except it's a lot cheaper, and we're testing that out. And if it keeps working the way it's working, we'll do that more often. Well, you know what? Del Didway is coming our way in just a few minutes, and it'll be in this same studio. But I'm going to make some coffee, and he'll be here at the bottom of the hour. Now, he asked me to email the link to him again. He said resend it. I'm hoping that he got it, or something. But anyway, so Del will be here at the bottom of the hour, God willing, and we look forward to that. Until then, I have two questions I ask myself these questions regularly. And they've helped me get through some stuff. So maybe they'll help you. What is the boldest thing that you've ever done for Jesus Christ? And when was that? The challenge is to never be satisfied with either answer.